All right, so let's start today's training proper. I'll be opening my video option now. Can we see my screen now? Please let's confirm if you can see my screen. Hello. Please let's confirm that we can see my screen. Hello. Hello. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Am I audible enough? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for that feedback. So, so for this week, we'll be looking at visual decision making. I'm just doing a quick refresh. Looking at visual decision making. So, throughout this month, we'll be looking at visual decision making, and this is week 5. For this week, we'll be looking at typography basics. Typography basics. So, what is typography? Typography is basically the voice of design. Like, it's what gives life to your design. It gives a voice to your design. Looking at this visual example on the right, which of these two sentences do we think connotes the word I am strong better? I would like to have our responses. The one that is bold. Thank you for that feedback. So, like you said, the one that is bold. Looking at these two sentences, one says I am strong, the first one, and the second one says I am strong too. But the one that is bold, which is the second sentence, connotes the word strong better than the first one. And that is what typography does. It gives voice to your design, it adds meaning to design. So, why do typography matter in design? Why do typography matter in design? Like I said here, typography affects trust, it affects clarity, and speaking about trust, it defines how more or how less people trust your brand. And in terms of clarity, it shows how clearly defined your goal is as an organization or as a business or as a brand owner. And the third point here is professionalism. Typography portrays professionalism in design depending on how well you use it. And it also conveys emotion. Typography conveys emotion. And the last point here is brand perception. And brand perception is basically how people perceive or how people view your brand, how people define your brand. And looking at a visual example here on the right, we have the first one, which is with us, your privacy is secured. And we also have a similar design here, which says with us, your privacy is secured. But the one here by the right, the secured is more bold. And let me just try this question. If you are to choose between two brands, which of them will you choose based on this design, and why will you choose them? I would like to have our response. Hello? Hello? Okay, I said if you are to choose between these two designs, these two brands, which one are we going to choose? Is it the left one or the right one? Okay. Can you give us the reason why? Can you give us the reason why you'll be picking it? Okay. Wow. Yeah, that last line really hits the nail on the head. Like the design of the right gives you the assurance of security, which is very important in business or in visual design as a whole. If people cannot trust the brand, then it's a big problem. Like you said, based on what you see, you believe that the brand on the right is more secured based on the way the typography is being presented. So there are two real life examples here. We have a clean professional layout versus a poorly typeset flyer. And this is Giannis Tokumbo, is a basketballer. And looking at these two designs, we can see that typography is being used here properly, and the design has white space around it, unlike here where the type is just being placed randomly, and it's affecting how we will view this design. So in essence, like I said earlier, to buttress my point, typography helps to convey trust, clarity in design. And looking at this, the name of the athlete is here and the number of his shirt is at the background with a playful use of type at the back. So what is typography? Typography is selecting fonts, sizing text, spacing letters, and organizing information. In essence, typography entails selecting fonts, sizing text, spacing letters, and organizing information. But to break it down and make it more basic and simple to understand, typography is basically when you select fonts to organize information in a piece of design. So I put it there that typography is. You said you can't hear me. Can anyone hear me? Please confirm if you can hear me so that I will know that I'm not the only one on the call. Can anyone hear me? Can you hear me loud and clear? Okay. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you. Thank you. So, like I said, typography is everywhere, and typography is being used in books, it's being used in websites, road signs, packaging, social media graphics, and so on and so forth. And the first example here is a book. You can see the use of typography here, the font being used here. And in terms of road sign, we have a sign here that says "Do not enter." This is the practical use of typography. When you see this sign anywhere, you know that they are telling you that you should not enter. And this is an example of packaging. It looks like it's for a clothing brand. And you can see the use of type on this label on the top of the box. So these are some examples of where typography is being applied in daily life and daily usage, the usage and examples. So we have anatomy of type. We have anatomy of type. And I want us to pay attention here because I would ask a question here so that I can be sure that we understand. So we have something we call typeface and we have something we call font. So a typeface is basically a font family. A typeface is basically a font family. I made a typo. I'm making this presentation. It's supposed to be font family, not design family. A typeface is a font family, and a font is a specific variation of a typeface. So I put an example here. We have the Helvetica, which is a typeface, and underneath it we have font. The different font variations are the fonts, and an example is here. Helvetica is the typeface. Let's say typeface is a family now, and font is like someone within that family. So a typeface is the overall classification. Fonts are subdivisions of a typeface. So did we get that, or should I explain again? Hello? Okay, let me take that again. Okay. A typeface is a font family. While a font, I've gotten that expression now. A typeface is a font family, while a font is a member of that family. I'm using a like simple English to explain now. And now we have a font that is we have a typeface that is called Helvetica. Helvetica is a typeface, and underneath Helvetica we have Helvetica bold oblique, Helvetica regular. These are called fonts. So the subdivisions are called fonts. The general name is called a typeface. Do you understand? Okay, I have my own question now. So if area is a typeface, if area is a typeface, if area is a typeface, and if area is a typeface, then what are we going to call area regular? I want someone to answer that question. Please, I didn't get that. Okay, it says yes, correct. Thank you for that feedback. It shows we are on the same page. Thank you for that feedback. Let's move to the next slide. So we have something that we call anatomy of letters, just like we have human anatomy. People that study anatomy knows about like the bones in the body, the femur. I'm not a science name, but I know a bit sure. So we have anatomy of letters, and we have something here that is called the cap height. The cap height is like the total height of the starting word in a font. And we have something we call the baseline. The baseline is like the below, the below, the sections below the font. And we have something we call the X height, which is like a subdivision of the cap height. And we have ascender height, descender height. These are just basic design terminologies. You don't need to worry yourself much about these ones. So why does anatomy matters in design? Why does anatomy matters in typography? Sorry. These features, they affect readability, personality, and scale. I'm going to break this down again. Why we have anatomy of typography is to communicate readability, personality, and scale. And I put the visual examples here. We can see in terms of readability, this here where I'm hovering the arrow, this is legible. And in terms of personality, we can use typography to communicate a particular intention. Like this font, the word the a font, it makes us when we look at this, we can see that this person is communicating the word font to us using typography. And in terms of scale, we can see the word massive, and it's being used, it's being bolding, it's being made bold to show that this is something really massive. So uh to repeat that again, type and the anatomy of typography helps let me take it again. The anatomy of typography ensures readability in design. It helps to communicate personality, and it helps to communicate skill using typography. So we have font categories overview in typography. We have font categories overview. The first one is the serif, the second one is sans serif, the third one is the script, the fourth one is the display, and we also have monospace. There are also a lot of categories, but for the sake of this training, we'll keep it at these 5. So let's proceed. We have serif versus sans serif. What is a serif? A serif is basically a small decorative line or foot attached to the end of a stroke in a letter or symbol within certain typefaces. These fonts are traditionally used in printed materials like books and newspapers, as the strokes are thought to improve readability by guiding the eye along lines of text. So basically, a serif is a small decorative line attached to the end of a stroke in a letter. And I put a visual example here by the right. The edge here, the curved edge here, is the serif. And the reason why serif fonts are being used is because they are thought to improve readability. and they guide the eye along lines of text. And we have examples of serif font. The common one is Times New Roman, which is basically used in most printing basically used for typing and is used for print too. We have Georgia and we have Garamond. And I put a visual example here. Meet the fonts, and I used the name of the fonts, like the fonts themselves now, they are making an introduction to us. So the first font is telling us, I am Times New Roman, which is this one. The second one, it says, I am Georgia, which is the Georgia font. And the third one says, I am Garamond, which is Garamond font. And if we look closely at this font, we can see the serif here around this T. We can see it around this I, and we can see it around this M. So let me go back. It's the small decorative line or foot attached to the end of a stroke. You can see that the decorative line is there, is around this N. So now let's move to personality of font. Personality of serif font, rather. Personality of serif font. The first one here is tradition. Serif fonts are usually associated with tradition, secondly with authority, elegance, and academic tone. And there are visual examples that I put here. In the legal field, serif fonts are being used to type legal documents, to type contracts. And in the academics, they are being used to type projects, thesis, and etc. And in terms of elegance, popular luxury brands use serif fonts to design their typefaces, to design their visual identity and social media graphics to communicate their message. And it exists because serif font is being associated with elegance, which aligns with the luxury brand, authority, which aligns with the legal field, academic tone, which allows with people who do research and people who are in the academic field. And in terms of tradition, serif fonts are being used not for all, but in some royal settings where individuals and organizations that are affiliated with the monarchy, they use it to create their brand image and visual identity. So what is sans serif? This is another classification of fonts. Sans serif, let's just break the words down. Sans serif. Sans means no, and serif, when you bring that together, it means like no serif. Sans serif fonts are typefaces without the small projecting lines or serifs at the ends of strokes. And we can see here in this A that I put here, there is no serif at the edge. And they are characterized by clean, simple, and modern letter forms with minimal stroke width variation, making them highly readable on digital screens and in print. So the cases where we use sans serif is when we want things that are highly readable on digital screens and in print. So let me just quickly ask us a question. What makes a font a serif font? I want someone to try and answer that question. What makes a font a serif font? Hello?
The extra leaves or extra annotations on the edge and within the character.
All right, thank you for that feedback. I would like to have more answers. All right. I can see your text in the group chat, Yagami. So like you said, the extra annotations, and we can also see the extra decorative line at the edge of the letters. That is what qualifies it as a serif font. And now back to sans serif. We have some examples of sans serif fonts that I have put here. The first one is Helvetica, the second one is Arial, and the third one is Inter. So like in the first example too, I put a visual example here. Meet the fonts. The first one says I am Helvetica. This is font Helvetica introducing itself to us. And this is how an Helvetica font looks like. I am Helvetica. The second one is Arial. I am Arial. And the third one is Inter, which says I am Inter. Now we have the personality of sans serif font. Personality of sans serif font. Sans serif fonts are usually associated with modernity, simplicity, technology, and minimalism. Sans serif fonts are being used when we want to convey when we want to portray a brand as modern. Secondly, as simple, and thirdly, when the brand is about technology or is into technology products or services. And the fourth one is minimalism, when we just want to convey a message in a simple format that makes it easy for anybody or everybody seeing it to understand. And this image here conveys minimalism, the second one here conveys technology, the third one here conveys modernity. So I'll take that again. Sans serif font helps to communicate modernity, simplicity, technology, and minimalism in design. Now, I put a side-by-side comparison here. The first one here is says, I am a serif font. I am a serif font, which is this is an example of a serif font, and this is the serif here at the edge, the curved stroke or line at the edge. And this one here says I am a sans serif font. This one here doesn't have a curve, unlike the first one. Do we understand this page? Do we understand this page? Thank you for that feedback. So now in design, there is a question of what type of font should I use? When should I use a particular classification of fonts? And this is where we are. This is the point we are going to explain now. When to use serif fonts. So as a designer, when am I supposed to use a serif font? The first one here says editorial layout, luxury brands, academic publications. Serif fonts are best used for editorial layout. We can see a kind of a print format here in this image. They are being used for editorial layout. And the second one is luxury brands. Serif fonts are best used for luxury brands. You can see this, the name of the brand is there, which is brand I or something. The third one is academic publications. Serif fonts are best used for academic publications. And we have some famous examples of serif fonts that are being used in popular brands. The first one here is the New York Times. The New York Times is there. We can see that the typography being used here is the serif. It has a lot of curve stroke around it. And Google also use let me take that again. The first one is New York Times, which uses a serif font, and the second one is Google, which uses a sans serif font. You can see that around this Google, there's no curved stroke or extra stroke around it. So this is a sans serif font, and we also have Apple, which uses a sans serif font, as there are no curved or stroke around the edges of the letter. We also have other font categories, like which I highlighted here. We have the script font, and I explained here that script fonts are decorative typefaces designed to mimic the fluid organic strokes of traditional hand lettering, calligraphy, and cursive handwriting. They are expressive but often less readable. The positive side to a script font is that they are expressive but the issue is that they are most time not readable. And an example here is I wrote using a script font, which an example of the script font is the brush script font. And I put it here, using this same brush script font. I type I am brush script font, but I believe some of us may have a hard time reading. Some of us may have a hard time reading this because it is not really readable like that, but it is expressive. So script font can be used when you want to prioritize expressing typography more than making it readable. We also have display fonts. Display fonts are expressive, eye-catching typefaces designed specifically for large-scale use, such as headlines, signage, and logos. Unlike text fonts, which prioritize readability in long paragraphs, display fonts prioritize visual impact, personality, and artistic detail. And this is what I'm trying to say in other words. The display fonts, they help to communicate visual impact, personality, and artistic detail. And an example here is the Futura display font, which is here by the right. And it says, I am Futura display font. This font is basically introducing itself to us. So when the question from this section is that when should I use the display font? The case where you're going to use display font is when you want to prioritize visual impact, like in terms of how quickly people will see your the typography in your design. You want to express personality and you want to express artistic detail in your typography. So display font here, they are being used for headlines, signage, and logos, and it's because they can easily be read, they are legible. We also have monospace font. We have monospace font. Monospace fonts, also known as fixed width or non-proportional fonts, are typefaces where every single characters, including letters, numbers, punctuation marks, and spaces, occupies the same amount of horizontal space. Monospace font is where the the characters or the letters in excuse me the letters or numbers, they occupy the exact same amount of space horizontally. And we can see an example here which says I am Courier Prime font. And by contrast, proportional fonts like Arial or Times New Roman assign variable width to letters, meaning a wide letter like W takes up more horizontal room than a narrow letter like I. An example is the Courier Prime font, which is here by the right side. And to break this down again, monospace fonts are basically fonts where like every letter, they occupy the same amount of space regardless of the letter. And we can see that this A and M, they have basically the same, they are occupying the same amount of space in this overall sentence. And now we have something in design that explains readability and style in typography. And readability is how easy it is to read large amounts of text. Readability is how easy it is to read large amounts of text. Legibility is how easily individual characters are distinguished. And I put it here that a beautiful typography that cannot be read is ineffective. Beautiful typography that cannot be read is ineffective. Readability here, you can see the first sentence here, meets the font. This is readable. Legibility is how easily individual characters are distinguished. The individual characters here are easily distinguished. And beautiful typography that cannot be read is ineffective. What is there? Like most of us, we find it difficult to actually read this because the font is expressive, but it's not readable. It's a beautiful typography, but it's not effective because it's not communicating properly to the readers. And we have factors that affect typography, factors that affect readability. Like what factors will determine how easy it will be for people to read your typography in a piece of design. The first one here is font choice. The choice of font you use for your typography will determine how easy or how hard it will be for people to easily read your typography. And the second one is size. If you make a particular item big or small in your design, the size will determine how quickly people will easily read it, or how hard it is for them to read it if it is too small. And we also have the use of line spacing, contrast. We've spoken about contrast in our previous trainings, and we have line length. And I put a guideline here for usage of fonts. For the body text, for the print, you can use between 10 to 14 points. Point is like a system of how would I put it? It's like a system of measurement in design. Some other design softwares, most design softwares have a number. Some they have pixels, inches, and a lot. So you pick the one that is suitable for your project. For a basic design, let's say flyer, you can use between 10 to 14 points for a design that will be printed, and 14 to 18 point pixel for a digital format. 14 to 18 points rather for a digital format. Now we have contrast and readability. Dark text on light backgrounds is usually safest. When it comes to contrast, we've explored this before, but let's just go over it again. When dark text are being placed on light background, it is usually more readable, and it is usually safe for typography, for the use of typography. And we can see an example here. I intentionally put the dark text as a sentence there, like a phrase here. Dark text, and this dark text is literally on a light background, which is the white background beneath it. So what are the ideal use of font? What are the ideal use of font? Line length. In terms of line length, you should have between 45 to 75 characters per line. And when it comes to using all caps, like capital letters, it is best to use capital letter for short labels, not long paragraph. If you use capital letter all through for long paragraph, it will make the text too hard on the eyes of the people that will be reading it. So all capital, when you want to put a text, when you want to use all caps, like putting a word in capital letter all through, is best for short labels or short phrases, not long paragraphs. And in terms of line spacing, it shouldn't be too tight. The line spacing, excuse me. The line spacing is the line between your character, between the letters in a font. Like if the line is too tight, it will be too cramped, and if it is too loose, it will be disconnected. So it's best to just use like a normal line spacing. And we also have letter spacing, which is tracking. This is useful for capital letters and logos. All caps is like same thing as capital letter. And alignment and readability. When it comes to alignment, when it comes to alignment in typography, it is best to use left aligned text. And the reason is because left aligned text can easily they are typically the easiest to read. Like when we look at this design, this particular slide now, the first thing we will see here is the ideal use of font, and it's because most humans read from the left to the right, not from the right to the left. So left aligned text is typically easiest to read. And we have some common readability mistakes. When you use tiny text for your design, people reading it or people checking the design won't easily understand the typography being used in that design. And when there is a low contrast, a case where there can be a low contrast is when you use a dark text on a dark background. That one will cause a low contrast, because you won't quickly understand what is being put in that particular space. It's just like putting a dark text on a black background. It's just like black on black. That dark text will fade with the rest of the background, and there won't be enough contrast for anyone reading it to understand it. And when we use decorative fonts are good, but when they are used wrongly, or when they are applied wrongly, it's going to cause an issue, because when you the font is not is expressive, but it's not communicating a message to me, so it's just like an ineffective use of typography. And we also have overly long lines. When you are trying to type like a sentence now, and the sentence is just being unnecessarily long, it will make it hard on the eyes for people to like have to read a lot of characters before they can understand your message. So it's best to break it into sections at times, so that the design will look more concise and more readable. We have an example, a bad example and a good example of typography. Can anyone read this first sentence for me?
Versatile text that is hard to read.
Thank you.
That
Good afternoon. It says over stylized text that is hard to read, and indeed it is really hard to read. It's because I even increased the font size, that's why you can read it. And the second one here says elegant and highly readable text. So the main purpose of typography in design is basically to make sure that people can easily read what is being put in your design. No matter how beautiful that typography is, if people cannot really read it, they cannot understand it, it's just like an ineffective use of typography. And we also have typographic hierarchy. And hierarchy here says the order in which information is noticed. Hierarchy is the order in which information is noticed. And we can see here by the right, the first block here, the second block here, and the third block. And frankly, looking at this, the first in block I'm noticing is the first one, because it's the one at the top, then the one beneath it, and then the one at the lowest. So type of hierarchy is basically the order in which information is being placed or is being noticed in a piece of design. So why does hierarchy matters in design? Why does hierarchy matters in design? I want us to unmute our mic and tell me the first thing we notice in this flyer by the right.
alignment.
Like, let's observe this flyer, this poster by the right. What is the first thing we notice in terms of hierarchy? What is the first thing we notice? Please, let's unmute our mic and contribute. Okay, Yagami said he noticed the image first, then the text. Can you be more specific about like the text you noticed first? The title, okay. So the title says Back to the Future. And frankly speaking, some people might notice this Back to the Future first because it's being placed at the top section of the design, and others may notice the image first, depending on how we observe the design. But in terms of hierarchy, this is what is prominent, being at the top, and the image comes next. And the names of the character, the name of the actors comes below because it's at the lowest section of the design. So basically, hierarchy helps to communicate what is most important in a piece of design. The secondly, it also introduce what comes next in a piece of design. Now let's use newspaper analogy to explain hierarchy. In terms of the newspaper analogy, we have the headline, We have the headline, the subhead, the body, and the caption. This is the headline. This is the headline, and it shows Times Herald News. And this is the subhead. This language is not English, but it says suspended potato and the likes. And this is the body text. This is the body text of this newspaper. This is the body text of this newspaper. And we have the caption here. The caption is beneath. They are usually beneath. This is an example of a caption being used in this newspaper. Are we still with me? Because it seems the network was breaking at the point. Hello, can anyone still hear me? Hello? Hello, can we still hear me? Hello? Okay, thank you for the feedback. So, yeah, it says methods to create hierarchy. The first one is size. We can create hierarchy through size. Second, through weight, color, position, and spacing. And there's a visual. What's wrong? Hello, can we hear me now? Hello? Yagami says he can hear me. Okay, because some people are typing on the group that they can't hear me. Okay, let's continue. So there are different. Hello. Okay, so there are different methods. It's probably the network. Is MTN network. But I think it should be okay now because I changed the location of the router. So can we still hear me now, like clearly now? Thank you very much for that feedback. So there are different methods to create hierarchy in design. In design, we can use size, weight, color, position, and spacing. And the first one here is the use of size to create hierarchy. We can see that this one says size, but it is smaller and it's at the top. And the one below it also says size, but this one is big. So this is an example of hierarchy using size because the sizes here are different. And in terms of weight, weight is the we've talked about visual weight in some of our previous training. And weight here, I'm using the literal word so that we can understand it better. Weight here, this one it says weight, and the second one also says weight. But I believe most of us we will agree that this second one explains weight more better because the font here is the bold format that is being used, and it has a higher level of visual attention than this second one. And in terms of color, this is a black color and this is an ash color. It is used to create a color. It's used to create a distinction among these two texts that says color. And in terms of space, the amount of gap, like literally space, the amount of gap between the elements, between these two texts. So we have some typography mistakes that is common in design. The first one is too many fonts. When you use too many fonts in a design, like let me exaggerate now, like you decide to use like 7 fonts for a single flyer. you will be you want to agree with me that that kind of flyer it will lead to nonsense at the end of the day. So it's best to just use 2 to 3 fonts maximum for a piece of poster design or logo, as the case may be, because when you use too much font, it can create a lack of cohesion in between the elements. Like the elements will not really blend in together. So it's best to just use 2 to 3 fonts maximum. And poor pairing. Poor pairing is when you use fonts that are not compatible. So it's advisable that you use fonts that are compatible. And the third one is inconsistent sizes. When you use weak information structure, let's say your first headline you used 70 points, then for the body caption you're using 105 points. It's already conflicting with each other. And another point here is excessive effect. When you use too much effects for your typography, you use too much outline, shadow, you use glow effects just for one single design. No, at the end of the day, you won't really achieve a desirable result. And another one is tight spacing. When you use typography, make sure that there is enough or normal space between your characters so that it can easily be read. And weak contrast, again, we've spoken about contrast, 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 contrast. Weak contrast is when the text is hard to read. Another point here is centering everything. When everything in the design is being centered, it can create an unstable reading pattern, an unstable reading in the design. And font abuse. Font abuse is this: when you stretch a font, you stretch it from the top and you stretch it, or you stretch it from the bottom. That is an example of font abuse because you will distort that font. But the best way to stretch a font is from the angle, from this side, from this side, from this side, or this side, from the four corners. That's the best way to stretch, to not stretch, to increase or enlarge a font, not stretch. So please don't stretch and don't distort your font by stretching it from the top or from the bottom. That way the font will look messy. So good font pairs. Me, I like photo. That's why I put yam and egg here. We all agree with me that yam and egg goes well together. And just like we have some food that goes well together, we also have some fonts that goes well together. We have Playfair displays. It goes well with Inter. Georgia goes well with Area, and Montserrat goes well with Meriwether. And I believe that some of us, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't think anybody has tried some weird food combination like yam and, I don't know, is it yam and semo, all those kind of funny stuff we've seen on the internet. So yeah, so there are some fonts that goes well together, and I put a pairing strategy here that it is best to contrast fonts with legibility. And I also put there that you can also prompt AI models like ChatGPT, Gemini, Cloud to suggest compatible fonts for you. Let's say you are working on a piece of design and you are confused on compatible font to use. You can just prompt your ChatGPT, Gemini to give you compatible fonts that you can use together for that design. So we've come to week 5 assignment, and I will break it down so that we can understand it properly. Based on the last discussion, as Caesar Graphics has informed us, we are going to be going more practical moving forward and less of theory, so we can evaluate our understanding of these design elements. And the first assignment here is design a simple flyer for a fashion brand using the principles of typography discussed in this week training. So we are to design a simple flyer for a fashion brand. It doesn't have to be something complicated, just a simple flyer using the principles of typography that we have discussed today, which is this week training. And the second one, it says design a simple flyer for a factory using workers needed here as the main copy, and ensures it aligns with the principles of design discussed in previous trainings. So for this second assignment, it's just to design a simple flyer, and we are to use the main copy, workers needed here, as the main copy, and we are to ensure that it aligns with the principles that we have been discussing so far in previous trainings. So now this is time for question and answer. I would like to have our questions so that we can review any unclear parts that we've been discussing so far. Yes, I'm with you. Good afternoon. How are you? All right. Which one? Okay. Should I go over that part again? Yes, I'm with you. Okay. Okay. Yes, sure. Sure, sure, sure. Oh my God.
And then I cannot say that I cannot put this text because to the client, every text there is important.
Okay.
Right? So now, I want to ask, so if in a simple like that, you are given so much text to put on your poster, on your file, what then would that bring? Then, you know, what then would that bring the best approach to it? And then, so also have so much to this, but it doesn't make it it gets yes, so
Okay. All right. When you are given so much text, like to compose for a simple flyer and likes, the first thing you do is to find a point of agreement with the client. Let's say you are given, like, for example, now 36. There are 36 sentences that the person is composing all together for you to make up that flyer. It's a matter of communicating with the client and reaching a consensus that is in the best interest of their business, not in your own best interest as a designer. Let's say the person wants to design like for a food brand now, and they're already putting unnecessary sentences, unnecessary phrases that does not communicate what will be best for their brand. You won't say because you are a designer and you decide to put all those 32 tests in that design. Or the design will not make sense in the end, and the client will even blame you. So it's best to find a point of agreement with the client and you communicate what is best for their brand to them. So after you have reached a point of agreement with them, then you can now decide to use your typography skills to place the elements in terms of hierarchy, the ones that you want to come first, most times the name of the brand and the subsequent information that will be below it. And you can also make use of images. We are only looking at typography like as a feed today, and we are not excluding other parts of design. I know it's not other part of design. So in this case, you can use images if that will serve the brand, if that will add to the beauty of that design and it will communicate the message better. Did I answer your question, pro? Like, did I answer, like, satisfy your question? Okay. Yes, I'm with you. Hello, I'm with you. We can hear you, sir. Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you for that contribution, sir. Thank you, sir. So, does anybody has any question so we can explore it together? No, no, feel free now. Okay. Okay. All right. Are you talking like generally about design projects now? You are being specific, like let's say about a flyer or a logo, or is it like a general or something now? Okay, okay. Okay, like I explained like into this sorry, like I explained like into this slide, the nature of that project, or the nature of let me say the nature of the project you are working on will determine the kind of font you will use. If it's for a luxury brand, or let's say you are working in a government institution and you are being asked to design a flyer for them, you are definitely going to use more of serif font in an academic setting than sans serif. Sans serif are being used when you want to use more of style, and like I said earlier, the nature of the project will determine the kind of font you will use. And once you understand the kind of project you are working on, then you can just do your own research. You can do your research on fonts that are suitable for that type of project, and that will really guide your decision to making a good use of font and making a good use of typography in your design. Does that answer your question, Wiz? Actually, okay. Okay, I can actually relate with what you are saying, because some designers say they prefer to use some designers even have their favorite font, that except otherwise the client wants another font, they are going to stick with that particular font because it's been serving them for a number of years, and they are just fonts that communicate in a simple way and in an effective way. Because like I said in this slide, a decorative font that is decorative and stylish and is expressive but is not legible is a bad use of typography. Because if you are putting something in your design and people cannot read it, it's just like you've wasted that space. So yeah, does anyone has a question? I don't want to call our names today. Oh, sorry, I've been on this screen, that's why I didn't see it. So you're asking for the difference between anchor and hierarchy, right? Hello? Okay, okay, okay. So basically, an anchor is the element in your design that holds your attention. that is the focal point of your design. It holds your attention, like the section in the design that holds your attention, and this serves as a base mode, as a base on for other elements in in the design, while hierarchy is basically the position or the order in which items or elements are being placed on a design. So anchor is different from hierarchy. Does that answer your question? All right, thank you for the feedback. Does anybody else has a question? Mr. Kayode Kindele, I saw your answer. I saw your question on the group chat now. Okay, it hasn't been answered. I'm just checking it now. Please, can you ask it now so we can look at it together? Okay. All right. Type can be used to communicate emotion in its design. For example, expressive font. When you use the expressive font to type and you type playful with an expressive font, it's definitely going to convey a sense of playfulness in that design. And when you use serious fonts, which are mostly used for academic purposes, it will show to someone that is reading it that this document is a serious document that should not be taken for granted. And I don't know, we would have seen like some examples of these children poolside party flyers that are being done. We can see the ways the typography is being done. Sometimes the typography is usually bold and it has some plain curve outlines around it that appeals to kids because kids like colorful things. When you use appropriate color with your typography, it can convey a sense of emotion to the readers that will be reading it. Does that answer your question, sir? Yes, the use of color with typography. All right. Does anybody else ask a question? Hello, do we have a question? Okay. Mr. Kayode, Miss. Okay, Yagami says no question. Mrs. Capable, are you with us? Do you have any question, ma? All right. Okay. In the advent of no question, we'll be bringing today's training to an end, and I'll see everyone in the next training. And do have a wonderful evening.